my dear children. Hope you are utilizing your time appropriately by doing your studies regularly through PDF files, completing your work in copies properly, and reading e-newspaper to improve your reading skill. Hope the condition improves and we can meet soon. So student, today we are going to study Geography Lesson 2, Abiotic Resources, Land, Soil and Water. These resources are vital for human survival as well as for maintaining quality of life. So let's get started.
So children, let's start with our geography lesson number 2, abiotic resources, land, soil and water. So now let's begin with the introduction. Land, soil, water are the resources which belong to abiotic resources and are the most important resources, whereas natural vegetation and wildlife resources come under biotic resources, either biotic or abiotic. Both type of resources are exhaustible in nature. So judicious use of these resources has to be there for enhancing their longevity. Means abiotic resources consist of non-living things like minerals, rocks, metals, land, soil and water. These are the free gift of nature for the living organism. The land, soil and water are the most significant abiotic resource of the earth. They carry great economic benefit to the people of not only a country but to the whole world also. So use of these resources in a judicious way is very important. Now land resources, land is among the most important natural resource. It covers about 30% of the total area of total earth surface. 90% of the world population occupies only 30% of the land area, and the remaining 70% of land is either sparsely populated or uninhabited. This is the land resource refers to the surface, shape, form, and nature of the land surface. Almost all the activities are associated with land resources. They provide shelter to both the living organism and non-living substances. The resource of the earth contain lofty mountains, flat plains, high plateaus, islands, etc. Now, land is unevenly inhabited due to various factors of land and climate, water fertility of soil, etc. Normally, the sparsely populated or uninhabited areas are because of rugged topography, steep slopes of the mountains, low-lying areas susceptible to waterlogging, deserted areas, and thickly forested areas. They are the area conditions where living is not possible. The densely populated areas of the world have plain, river valleys which have suitable land for agriculture, because land is fertile in these areas, so people live densely in these plain areas. The availability of rich and fertile land make it suitable for living, and a huge population resides on it. So this is also one of the factor that fertile land and the availability of the mineral resources also pull people to live in that particular area. Mineral richness, water resources, fertility of soil, and good topographical conditions are important. So it's very important that in certain area where a lot of population is there, it's just because of the resources that is present there. So next is land uses. Land use refer to the use of land for different purpose such as agriculture, forestry, mining, building houses, roads, and setting up of industries. Factors affecting land use are of two kinds: physical factors and human factors. Physical factor like topography, soil, climate, and availability of water, they're all the physical factor of the land. And whereas the human factors that include population and technology. And on the basis of the ownership, the land can be classified as private and community land. So private means that it is owned by individual. Private land is used by an individual or his family members, and this type of land is used for personal purposes also. And the community land is for some common purpose, such as collection of fruits, grains, nuts, water, vegetable, medicinal herbs, etc. The land which is for the community purpose is known as the common land or a community land. The demand for land by the people is growing, but the availability of land is limited. So there is considerable variation in land use among nations of the world. So the term land use pattern is used to indicate different uses of land. And these are the factors that affect the land use pattern, like climate, availability of water, technology and human resource, topography, minerals, types of soil, availability of water, because water is a basic need for all living beings. Thus, is availability is essential for both the settlement and land use pattern. Technology and human resources, very important point here, because human resource use technology to convert the raw natural resources into valuable product that fulfills the requirements of the people. Human resources along with the technology are necessary for a successful land use pattern. That is why this is very important, that how the land is used for the purposes, different purposes. And the topography is a well-drained plain region provides suitable condition for agriculture activities and pasture. Such type of land use pattern attracts a huge number of people. Mineral is also one of the important point, because mineral deposit also influence the land use pattern of a place. Now, for example, let's a region having mineral deposit are used for mineral purposes. So huge industries can be set up in that vicinity, in that areas. And the type of soil is that the place should have an adequate and well planned land use pattern that can be seen in the area having fertile soil. So these points are very important for the land use pattern. So the next is now conservation of land resources. That is, how can we save our land resources? The conservation of land resources refer to the careful use of proper management of these resources so that they may continue to be used. The conservation of land resources is essential to save them for the next generation. Even the survival of human beings depends upon the availability of these resources. So, with the following measures that can be adopted to conserve land resources, degradation rate of land should be checked. More trees should be grown. Land should be reclaimed for the main uses. Overgrazing should be controlled. Use of chemical pesticide and fertilizer should be regulated, and use of biofertilizer should be encouraged. And by making rules related to soil and land conservation, and by making the farmers educated regarding the negative aspects of overgrazing and overutilization of fertilizers, the government can play an active role to preserve the soil and the land. The land is very important resource, and it has to be conserved before it becomes infertile. Soil resources. Soil is the thin layer of grainy substance covering the surface of the earth. Soil is made up of organic matter, mineral, and withered rocks found on earth. It takes hundreds of years to form few centimeters of soil. The soil profile refers to the layered structure which spread from the parent rock to the topsoil surfaces. Soil refers to the thin layer of grainy substance that covers the earth, and it is closely related to the land. And the the layer structure which spread from the bedrock to the top surface layer is known as the soil profile. So, and in that soil profile, the first layer is the topsoil with humus and vegetation, and the second layer is a subsoil with sand, silt, and clay. Third layer is a withered rock material, and the fourth layer is a parent rock. This is how the soil profile is layered. So in different geographic region, different soils that can be observed. So various geoclimatic regions make the soil distinctions, and varied fertility of soil occurs. Different type of soils are suitable for particular type of crops. Now the factors of soil formation. The type of soils found in a region depends upon a variety of factors. The first factors is parent rock. It determines the color, texture, chemical properties, mineral content, and permeability of the soil. Parent rock is the source of the fragmented material that make up the soil. And the next factor is relief. Both the altitude and slope of a relief determine the soil formation in many ways. Steep slopes have thin soil layered, whereas the gentle slopes have thick and deep layers of soil. The next factor is climate. Temperature and rainfall are the most significant climate variables that affect the process of soil formation. Both help in decay and decomposition of the parental rock. Next is the time. It determines the thickness of the soil profile. Soil formation is not an immediate process. It takes hundreds of years to form the soil. So these are not only the factor, even the natural vegetation, wildlife, and microorganism, they also play an important role in formation of the soil. The decay plant material add humus to soil, while the roots of the plant hold the soil and prevent soil erosion. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa cause decay of plants and animals. So, soil formation is not the result of all single factor that we have talked about, but in fact, it is a mixture of all the geoclimatic factors available. And these presence of microorganism, they play a very important role in the soil nutrient cycle and mineral balance. A degradation of soil and conservation measures. So how the soil has been degraded, depleted, and how can we conserve them? A major threat to the soil erosion is and depletion is the human being, and the natural factors are responsible for degradation of these soil. Deforestation, overgrazing, overuse of chemical fertilizers or pesticides, rainwater, landslides, and floods are the factors which lead to soil degradation. Soil conservation refer to the protection, efficient use of soil, and preservation of soil resources. So it's very important that the proper use of soil has become essential because it directly affects our food related demands. Soil conservation is a praiseworthy effort made by man to prevent soil erosion in order to retain soil fertility. It may not be possible to stop soil erosion entirely, but much can be done to reduce the rate of soil erosion. So the factor by which we can control the soil erosion is one of the factors mulching. In this method, organic matter such as straw, grass, etc. are used to cover the bare ground between rows of plants, and it helps soil to retain moisture. And the next is the contour barrier. In this method is mainly used in the hilly areas where grass, stone, soil, bars, etc. are used to build contour barriers. Contour plowing, it refers to the plowing parallel to the contour of a hill slope. It forms a natural barrier for water to flow down the slope, and thus it controls even the soil erosion. One of the best factor is terrace farming. This method of soil conservation is mainly used on the steep slopes. In this method, broad flat terraces are made on the steep slopes to cultivate different crops. These terrace control surface runoff and soil erosion. The intercropping, different crops are grown in alternate rows and are sown at different times to protect the soil from rain wash. Control overgrazing must be checked properly. Fodder should be raised as a crop because the free movement of animal loosens soil particles. Shelter belts are the rows of trees planted to check the wild movement to protect soil cover. Mixed farming and crop rotation are also some of the method to improve the fertility of soil. Excessive use of fertilizer should also a cause of soil degradation and leads to a loss of soil fertility of soil. So the excess use of fertilizer should also be checked. Use of high yield crop variety is also a major cause of concern. So by this methodologies we can save our soil. Next is water resources, which is very important resource. Water is a vital renewable natural resource 3/4 of the Earth's surface is covered with water. Therefore, it is called as water planet. Ocean water is saline and not fit for human consumption, whereas fresh water accounts for only 2.7% of the total water available. Only 1% of this fresh water is available and fit for human use and is found as a groundwater, river, lake, etc., which is also called as a potable water. Fresh water is the most precious substance on earth. It can neither be added nor subtracted from the earth. The total volume of the earth's water remains constant. Water from ocean and other huge water bodies evaporates and condenses to form clouds. Finally, it precipitates back to the earth's surface. This whole cycle of water circulation is known as the hydrological or water cycle. Water resources can be used in many ways, like different types of plants depend on water for their growth and food. They get water through rainfall and irrigation. Water is also used in industries for processing and cooling. It is used for generating hydroelectricity. People use water for transportation purposes. In the early times, water is the most significant mode of transportation. Water is used to meet our daily needs such as drinking, cooking, bathing, washing, etc. It is also used for recreating such as swimming, fishing, boating, and water surfing. So, water shortages in many regions of the world is the consequence of variation of seasonal or annual precipitation, or the scarcity is caused by overexploitation and contamination of water resources. Changing land use pattern and need for irrigation coupled by inefficient uses of water has also brought the scarcity of water, pollution of water bodies, as well as degradation of our environment. This all leads to the water depletion, water scarcity. Now, conservation of water resources. The major problem of today's world is shortage of clean and adequate water sources. The term conservation refers to efficient utilization besides protection, resource improvement, and preservation. Water conservation focuses on several issues like improvement of vegetation, over to improve underground water resources, rainwater harvesting, both for storage and saving wasteful surface runoff. So the following points that I'm going to tell you, these steps can be taken to conserve the water resources. Grow different types of natural vegetation to slow down the surface runoff. In this way, the underground water storage can be improved. Impound water resource by making check dams, that is, dams can be built to check the water resources. Rainwater harvesting technique can also be used to save surface runoff. This is one of the best implied method that can be adopted to save the water. Adequate amount of water should be used in irrigation process. Canal lining should be used to control water seepages, and in the dry regions, sprinkler, drip, or trickle irrigation method should be used in agriculture activities. Recycled water should be used as coolant in the industries, and at home we should check the wastage of water. The best contribution that a human or a man can do to control the water is stop the wastage of water, whether in washing or in the kitchen or in the garden or in the toilet use. Thus, if every member in the house needs to use water economically, in this way, the water resources can be conserved and managed efficiently. So, children, I hope you have understood the chapter clearly. Now, let's have a look at the pictures related to the topic that we have covered in the chapter. First picture is of land resource, which provides shelter to the living and non-living resources. Second picture is of the soil profile. It is formed by the rocks and organic matter. This layered structure, which spread from the bedrock to the top soil, a horizon, is known as the soil profile. Next picture is of the land resource and management.
where land has been properly managed to utilize the agriculture and commercial purposes. Just below to that is the water cycle, which is the important source of maintaining water on the earth's surface. It moves continuously and most precious form of life. Next is the global warming due to indiscriminate use of natural resources and cutting of trees has led to the increase in earth's mean temperature, leading to global warming. Next picture we can see is the formation of soil. So these are the factors that is responsible for the formation of soil: parent rock, relief, climate, time, natural vegetation, wildlife, and microorganism. So children, I hope you have understood now very clearly with the pictorial view about the chapter.